The storm came down from the mountains like a living thing, thick with ice and wind that screamed across the extraction zone. Visibility was almost zero. Snow hammered against tactical goggles, turning the night into a white wall. The SEALs had been on the ground too long, and everyone knew it. Comms were unstable, the terrain was hostile, and the enemy patrols were tightening their noose. They had already said the words no one ever wants to say on a mission. "She's gone. Kia." No signal, no movement. They whispered it at first, as if saying it louder would make it final. The female sniper had been separated during the ambush, swallowed by the storm and the mountains. She had taken a high-ridge position hours earlier to provide overwatch, and then the explosion came. A secondary blast, rockslide, silence. The team leader, Lieutenant Harris, clenched his jaw as he listened to the last broken transmission. Static, wind, then nothing. They marked her position on the map, but no heat signature showed on the drone feed. No movement, no sign of life. Protocol said they had to move. The weather window was closing. Another 30 minutes and extraction would be impossible. Harris looked at his men, their faces ghostly under night vision green. No one said her name, but everyone was thinking it. She knew the risks, one operator muttered, more to convince himself than anyone else. They pulled back into the tree line, setting up a defensive perimeter while waiting for the final call. Snow piled on their shoulders. The storm erased footprints within seconds, like the mountain itself was trying to bury the truth. Back at the forward command post, the radio crackled with updates. A calm voice marked the sniper as presumed dead. Another casualty of terrain and war. Paperwork would come later. A folded flag, a quiet phone call to a family. But the mountain had not finished telling its story. Far above them, beyond where the drone could see, a woman lay half buried under ice and shattered rock. Her rifle was twisted, scope cracked, but her fingers still moved. Pain screamed through her ribs every time she breathed. One leg was numb, trapped under frozen debris, but her mind was clear. Too clear. She remembered the blast, the ground vanishing beneath her, the sensation of falling without sound. Then darkness. She woke to cold so sharp it felt like fire. Snow filled her mouth. Wind howled past her ears. She forced herself not to panic. Panic burned oxygen. Oxygen was life. She checked herself the way she had been trained to do, even through pain. Fingers, arms, one shoulder dislocated, ribs broken, leg pinned. She couldn't feel her toes, but she could still think, and that meant she wasn't done. Her comm unit was dead. Antenna snapped clean off. Her rifle was damaged beyond use. She was alone, injured, and invisible in a storm designed to kill. Somewhere below, her team believed she was dead. She smiled through blood on her lips. Not because it was funny, but because she refused to let the mountain decide her ending. She worked slowly, painfully, freeing her leg inch by inch. Every movement sent lightning through her body. She bit down on her sleeve to keep from screaming. When the rock finally shifted enough for her to pull free, she collapsed back into the snow, gasping. The cold tried to take her then. It whispered to her, telling her to rest, to close her eyes. She thought of the long nights in sniper school, the instructors who told her she didn't belong there. She thought of the men who doubted her, and the few who believed. She thought of her team, pulling back without her, carrying the weight of her death. No, she whispered into the storm. She tore fabric from her sleeve and bound her ribs as tight as she could. She forced her shoulder back into place with a sound that vanished into the wind. She salvaged what she could from her pack. A damaged sidearm, one magazine, a flare she prayed still worked, and her knife. Navigation without visibility was a nightmare, but she knew the terrain better than anyone. She had chosen that ridge for a reason. She remembered every slope, every line of descent. She began to move, dragging one leg, leaning on her rifle like a crutch. Each step was a negotiation with pain. Each breath burned. Time blurred. The storm erased everything behind her, but she kept moving downhill, toward where her team would have been forced to fall back. Below, the SEALs were preparing to move out. Harris was seconds away from giving the order when the point man froze. "Contact," Harris asked. The operator shook his head slowly. Movement. One figure. Coming out of the storm. Weapons came up instantly. Fingers tightened on triggers. Through night vision, a shape appeared, barely upright, staggering forward through the white chaos. Could be enemy, someone whispered. The figure stumbled, nearly fell, then raised an arm weakly. Something small and bright arced upward. The flare ignited. Red light cut through the storm like a scream. For half a second, no one spoke. Then Harris' voice cracked through the comms. That's her. The figure took 2 more steps and collapsed to her knees. The team surged forward without waiting for orders. They caught her before she hit the ground, hands grabbing her vest, voices overlapping in disbelief. You're alive, we thought. How the hell? She looked up at them, face pale, eyes steady despite the pain. Next time, she rasped, wait longer before calling it. They laughed, some of them choking on it, some of them wiping their eyes. Medics worked fast, hands moving with practiced urgency, wrapping her in thermal blankets, checking vitals. Harris knelt beside her. We're not leaving you again. She nodded faintly. Didn't plan on letting you. The extraction bird fought the storm to reach them, rotors screaming against the wind. As they lifted off, the mountains disappeared beneath cloud and snow, silent witnesses to a story that would never fully make it into the official report. Days later, in a warm medical tent far from the ridge, she lay staring at the ceiling, bruised, stitched, alive. Her team filtered in one by one, joking too loudly, pretending they hadn't already imagined her funeral. Word spread fast. The female SEAL sniper who was declared dead walked out of a storm that killed men twice her size. Some called it luck, others called it stubbornness. Those who knew her best called it will. If you're listening to this story and you believe in strength that doesn't ask permission, in survival that refuses to quit, then you already understand why stories like this matter. And if you want more powerful, emotional, and unforgettable stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, Her World Stories. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need to hear them. Because sometimes the world whispers that someone is finished, written off, forgotten. And sometimes, against all odds, they walk back out of the storm.